So I don't know any other way to break this news to you guys besides just saying it as it is. I have officially been labeled a tether. Now, 2 to 3 months back, I didn't even know what the hell that word meant. I just thought a tether was something that is connected to another thing, where you're tethered to something, right? So when I started seeing this word popping up in some of my comments and, even some people sharing my TikTok videos on their X accounts and having these little hate threads or whatever it was, I kept seeing this word tether, tether, tether. And so finally, I took a moment to check the damn word out. And it turns out that I guess I am now in the category of a tether, which means that I'm no longer allowed to speak on black issues or black American issues. But here's the thing about that. I don't give a damn. As a matter of fact, I believe that, according to 1A, the First Amendment, I have the right to talk about whatever I so choose to speak on. And on top of that, I believe that anybody has the right to speak on what they want to speak on, so long as they're willing to put up with the backlash. And I have signed that contract a long time ago. I'm okay with speaking on subjects and having people disagree with me on a daily basis, but I am not going to stop talking about the things that are placed upon my heart, period. So that being said, why is it that I believe that I can even speak on black issues in the first place, being a quote unquote tether? Well, here's the thing. I have spent most of my life in America as essentially an American citizen, right? I remember more of my life in America than I do from the age of 0 to the age of 9 when I was in Zimbabwe and then South Africa, right? 5 years in each of those places, or at least 5 years in one, about 4.5 in the other. So a majority of my experiences have been as a quote unquote black American. Even though in the household I may have African parents, it was only really the four of us, my parents and my brother and I moved to California, and I was thrown out into this world, and this is what I knew. So the experiences that I had as a child, going into my then teenage years, going then into my young adulthood, and then eventually into adulthood, have been as a quote unquote black American. Well, but you don't have the historic context. You don't have the ancestry. You're right. But what I do have is the experiences and, more importantly, the research. As a matter of fact, I believe that you could have a white professor who teaches maybe African American studies and is more well versed in the subject than an individual who has the ancestry. And that person is well versed enough to speak on these subjects. Now, most of the time when I guess people are offended that anybody, let alone I, because I even see guys like Thomas Sowell, who was maybe 2 generations or a generation removed from slavery, still having this backlash and people trying to shame him into shutting up. What I've come to realize is this. Anytime you speak on, I guess, personal agency, more specifically when it comes to the quote unquote black community. If you are somebody who believes that black folk can genuinely do for self, that we all have the ability to take personal accountability, and we don't have to be defined by the things that once were. We don't have to be defined by the past. Instead, we can continue to move forward to create the lives that we desire instead of creating excuses rooted in, systems of injustice, or whatever else concepts that we may place in our way. I've never once said slavery didn't happen. I never once said racism doesn't exist. I simply say these are not the biggest problems that we are actually facing. In the same way, sexism is not the biggest problem that women are facing in this modern day and age. Instead, what is the belief system. It's not a system out there, not a system of oppression, a system of white supremacy. It's a system of beliefs. And when you hold on to a belief system that does not serve you, you will find yourself in a place where you are not served. Simple as that. You continue to label yourself as a marginalized person, as a person who essentially is fighting an uphill battle throughout life. You're going to find yourself creating what is called confirmation bias, where every single experience is used, or at least is viewed through the lenses that you've created for yourself. Everything is racist, you will see everything is racist. Simple as that. If everything is sexist, homophobic, whatever it is, everything will be viewed through that perception. You didn't get the job, it was racism. You did get the job, but they're treating you a certain way, it was racism. You get the job and they're treating you well, but they're not. It's like everything will come through those lenses. I used to be the type of guy who would walk down the street and see somebody maybe cross the street or, turn a corner, whatever it was, and the first immediate thought was racism. Why? Because I was conditioned to believe that. These were the lenses that I saw life through. And it was only when I shifted my level of thinking, my level of consciousness, that I could even think outside of my narcissistic, tendencies, because we can all develop narcissism. Don't get that twisted. We can all go to a place where we're so self-centered, not in a healthy way, but we're viewing everything as an attack upon us, right? When I stepped out of that and I could actually just see that, wait, everybody's having their own life experience. Everybody is actually just living their own thing. So instead of perceiving every little slight as racism and white supremacy, here's a system, that is essentially against me and it's all working against. Instead of being in that state of consciousness, I could simply see somebody as, you know what, maybe they just crossed the street because they live there. That actually happened to me once, by the way. I'm taking a walk in the old neighborhood in San Jose, California. And I think she might have been Indian lady, whatever it was, older lady. And she crossed the street as soon as I was coming up. And I thought to myself, well, racism. That woman walked into her home, directly into the house right in front of her. And in that moment, I thought to myself, well, maybe she could have gone there sooner. Maybe she just went there because she saw me. No, we were walking on the same path in the same direction. And she came close enough to you and then eventually turned the corner and, watched for any cars coming across that suburban street. And she walked her butt over to that damn house, which was her home. And this is just one example of a multitude, a host. When you go through life with that mentality, that's what tethers you. They like to call me a tether because they say you tether to black culture. You tether to trying to be a black American. Well, the thing is, my classification, if you go onto my, my documents, well, actually, I have it right here. That's funny. If you go into these documents, it's going to say American. It's not going to say black American for you or me. It's not going to say Indian American, etc., right? It's just going to say American. You go out into the rest of the world, they're going to see you as an American. It is only when you step into these spaces where all of a sudden you are now a black American, and this American, and that American. And the only reason I speak on these things is because I believe there's such a stronghold around the issue or the subject of race. There's such a mental obsessiveness with these aspects. And I understand, trust me. There's a lot of people who are profiting off of this. It is a business. It is an industry, actually, more so than just a business. It is a multi-billion-dollar business that is of race grievance and things of that nature. There are people who are profiting from it, both financially as well as socially. And I think the social one is even more powerful at times, right? Where you can essentially build a collective, build a group of people that can all be grieved about the same thing, trauma bonded in essence, and perpetuating this very same narrative and staying in their stuckness. And a lot of this we use as excuses not to do what is necessary to move forward in life or to justify the things that we have done in the past, the actions we took that didn't get the results that we may have desired. That's the God honest truth about it. I didn't do what I needed to do to get where I wanted to get to, and now I'm blaming the rest of the world for why I am where I am. And I've been in that place, and I lived, much of my younger life in that space where everything was happening to me. The basketball coach, he's just racist. That's the reason why he doesn't, want me on his team. Sophomore year at a, private high school and one of the best institutions and one of the best basketball teams in the state, let alone, in the country, let alone the state. And I'm thinking to myself, I can just half-ass the way that I did before, get away with a little bit of athleticism, get away with a little bit of hard work, a little bit of practice, when everybody else is a dog about it. When everybody else, these are, D1 recruits. We have Washington University. We have Georgetown, Gonzaga. These coaches coming into our gym for open gyms. And here I am sitting my butt down doing nothing, being unproductive, not actually giving my whole self to the sport, let alone not even really being built for the sport. It was already, disadvantageous for me. But nevertheless, there had to come a point where I stopped blaming everybody for the decisions I was making and therefore the results that I was getting from those decisions. And so when we get into this conversation of who can speak on what, the silencing only comes once you start to point out the reality that people are responsible for their own choices. Once you start to point that out, now you're an enemy. You could talk about dealing dope. You could talk about unaliving folks in your own community. You could talk about poisoning, your community. You could talk about being a degenerate. You could talk about being a streetwalker. All of that is okay. All of that gets a pass in the so-called community. But God forbid you start speaking on personal agency and personal responsibility. You are now villainized. A Thomas Sowell, one of the most brilliant minds in American history, he will go down as that. And as much as he is appreciated now, he will be appreciated tenfold once he passes. Just seems to be a thing we do as humans, right? He has gotten us some of his flowers now. He will get more flowers in the next 50 to 100 years because the things he said were prophetic. They were happening at the time, but also they were going to, I guess, be magnified as we move forward. A man like that who speaks truth from a place of wisdom as well as knowledge. The man is well versed. The man has the stats. The man has the numbers. The man has put it together. He is a professor of economics, so he understands how economies genuinely work. And when he says something like, well, criminality is not caused by poverty, but instead by the normalization of certain ways of being, aka culture, and then the culture can create criminality, and then that criminality can perpetuate greater levels of poverty and other levels of degeneracy. A welfare state, which is supposed to promise to help people, is actually a suppressant of the people and taking away that ingenuitive aspect of them. And so they don't produce, they don't create, they don't see themselves as even able to. A man who speaks on such things is seen as what? He's seen as the problem. He's seen as a threat. He is speaking down on the community. So the dude talking about literally taking out the lives of the people who look just like him, he's not problematic. But the man who's saying we can actually build within our own, not just saying build as black people, as an individual, because again, we need to get away from this entire race conversation if we're ever going to genuinely eliminate it. And I speak on these things because I know you need to hack that part of the brain that is so obsessive to speak to certain issues. Some people can only hear it through that, right? They have to be referred to with an exact title, and then it resonates and it hits, right? And again, when we speak on issues like race without using it as a means to blame or to victimize, self-victimize ourselves, to create a level of pity for ourselves, then we can actually have fruitful, productive conversations. Only then can we actually have a conversation that is going to get anything done. But I've realized that many people don't care about getting anything done. They don't. They care about being grieved. They care about being, perceived as somebody who is essentially worthy of this attention because they've gone through so much. And they would rather have attention than progress. And I'm not built like that. I don't know about you. I'm just not built like that. I can't go through life thinking to myself, I would rather have somebody feel sorry for me than I would create, wealth for myself, my family, my kids, and my kids' kids. I'm just not built like that. I'm not. I can't be outside of a building protesting we shall overcome when we already have overcome, and crying racism when I could be here speaking to y'all, pouring into my gifting, being productive, doing something that's actually going to benefit somebody else, including myself, of course, but is going to benefit somebody else. I literally can't do it. I can't knowingly have the formula to success and then allow an excuse that essentially has no effect stop me. I always say you can't stop somebody who is not willing to be stopped. You can't stop somebody with a plan. You can't stop somebody who is given, they're devoted to their path. You could not stop slaves who were born onto those democratic plantations that said to themselves, I'm going to be free. I'm going to buy my own freedom. Frederick Douglass, I am going to buy my own freedom. He had to do it at least twice. I'm going to buy my own freedom. And he becomes one of the most prolific speakers as well as writers of his time. A best friend to, I believe, is definitely top 3 presidents in American history. Might be top 5 in global history. I haven't done enough research in every single, country's history, but I know that man was a prolific president. And to be a former slave, to be in the same conversation as that man says everything about the man's character. And that's what we get back to when we speak of, MLK, etc. And he spoke on not your skin color. And today that could be not your skin, not your gender, your sexual orientation, not whatever your classifications or whatever are, but instead your character, not your reputation either. Because reputation is who people think you are. Your character is who you actually are. So we want to know your character. Who are you? Who are you when nobody is watching? Who are you when nobody's at the house? Right now, I'm at the house by myself. Who am I here? Not who am I when somebody's looking and somebody's watching. That's reputation. Who am I when times are hard? Who am I when things don't go my way? Who am I when I get a no and another no and another no and another no? Rejection after rejection after rejection. Who am I then? Am I somebody who's going to stand 10 toes? Am I somebody who's going to continue to live with those virtues, those values, those more? Am I going to be a man of integrity? It can all be wrapped up in integrity. Is my word bond? Do I say what I mean what I say? Do I live in alignment with my thoughts? Do my actions highlight my thoughts? And when I see I'm out of integrity, then I got nothing. Like I say, all a man has is his word and his, you know what? I would rather be a tether than I would be a degenerate. And I know the two things are not mutually exclusive. You could be a degenerate and a tether, whatever, again, tether, just words being made up. You can be a degenerate and be what they now want to call themselves FBA, right? Foundational Black American. You can be a solid, upright individual in either category, and that's all that matters to me. And that's all that matters to those who this message is for. You know that it is more valuable and more important for you to be a solid person than it is to be a solid Black person, to be a solid white person, to be a solid gay person, to be just a solid human being. Solid human being, simple as that. To stop worrying about these petty little things what everybody else got going on and to focus in on our own lives. That in and of itself takes a lifetime. To learn the fine art of just focusing on your own damn life, that is a craft that must be mastered. It must be honed. It must be cultivated throughout a lifetime worth of experiences to realize that, wait a minute, I have my lot that was given to me. The next man's business, not my business. Next man's business, not my business, right? We speak life into each other, but we don't, oh, well, look what they got. Look what they got going on. Well, if only I had what they had. Like, I did a video with Keke Palmer recently. Oh, if only if I was white, if I wasn't a Black girl, if I wasn't a dark-skinned girl, I would have what Miley Cyrus has. Why are you looking at Miley? That has nothing to do with you. Why don't you just focus on your own career? Become all that you can be. You have already succeeded infinitely more than your counterparts. Than I'm sure the girls that maybe you were raised around or came into those very same auditions or whatever it may have been. You have created success for yourself, and you should be proud of yourself. But if you want to create something more and larger, whatever that means for you, I'm not going to judge you on that. But don't blame it on because I'm Black, because there's too many examples of people who did it, as dark-skinned as they were. And the only excuse that person had was essentially no excuse. They said, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to become this, and that's all there is to it. So yeah, I'll be a tether all day. I'm going to tether myself to the truth. I'm going to tether myself to reality. I'm going to tether myself to those uncomfortable conversations that are necessary to be had. I'll tether myself to, speaking freely and knowing that I have my own experiences, but I can also speak to those things that I've observed throughout a lifetime, that I've devoted my life to studying and understanding, even more so than some of the folks. When you move into a country and you're looking to get your nationality, you have to study. Sometimes even more so than folks who are born in that country, because you're just born into it. You have to study certain things in history, not just dates, etc. You have to understand certain, constitutional aspects. What is the difference between the Bill of Rights? What is the difference between the Declaration and the Independence? Like the Pledge of Allegiance, to actually know all the words. Unlike Skamala, who was up there forgetting the damn words. You have to be tuned into these things. And for me, because I have such a respect for America, because I have such a love and appreciation, because I'm so thankful for what it's afforded me, right? That's the reason why people look to get into this place. Multitudes of people look to break into this country. Millions of people, if not in the billions, look to break into this country and make their way into this country. I know how fortunate, I know how blessed I am. And that's why I'm not the dude to sit here and complain. Oh, well, you know how it is for the Black man. No, I don't know how it is. I know how it is for me, and it's been an incredible opportunity to do right. When I didn't do right, then I got the outcome of not doing right. When I did right and did what was necessary and, altered wherever I needed to alter things, shifted, changed, moved, been malleable, been adaptive to change. Like when I've allowed myself to continuously learn, iterate, to innovate, to not just be stuck, stagnant, and blaming the system for why I'm not moving forward, but instead said, how can I move with the time? How can I move beyond the time? How can I be real to myself, authentic to myself, but also continuously learning how this thing works, whether it's this platform you see me on here or any other place that you may see me or have some experience with me, right? Use everything to my disposal. That is the opportunity. America is an opportunity. These men, they came here for the sake of opportunity. They built this experiment known as America as one where you have freedoms that allow for you to become what you will yourself to be. Keyword, will yourself, or keywords, will yourself. Nobody else can do it for you. Nobody else is propped up a position to do it. Nobody else was born to fix your life. You came into this planet, you came into this life experience right here for you to do something about it. Simple.
I used to be afraid of the dark, a place unknown like a hardening heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. You got a feeling the time's night. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the life in him illuminate the night. I know the time is taking. A 365, that's a full rotation. I see you looking up, you know them constellations. Constantly gazing like house of praises, you get to praising. They see your light shine, that's